Is my job safe? That is the most Googled career question of 2026, and fairly so. Everywhere we look, companies are laying people off. They're investing millions, if not billions, into automation, and AI talk is everywhere. What frustrates me as a career coach, however, is that there's only two narratives that we hear. On one side, we have it's the doom and gloom, like, listen, give up, your job is going to be automated, just good luck. On the other side, it's like everything is going to be great and jobs are going to be created. But neither one of these is actually telling you what do you need to do to make sure you protect yourself from either automation. And then if you do feel like your job is going to be safe, how do you actually maintain that? And this is what this episode is about. We're going to talk into a practical 3-step career audit that's going to help you answer the question, is my job safe? And what do I do about it either way? I'm Elena, a career coach, talent development professional, and a former recruiter. And in this conversation, we get rid of the corporate fluff, and I just give you really practical ways that you can take your career forward. So let's go. All right, before we go into the career audit, let's actually reframe what we're asking here. So there's actually two separate questions, and one of them we don't often think about. So on one side, is my job safe? Is actually looking at, is your current job, your role safe from being automated in 2 to 5 years from now? And the other part of it is my career safe? Meaning, do you have the actual behaviors, network, knowledge, skills, resilience to keep your career going no matter what job you actually are doing? So these are two very separate questions, as you can see. And the second one actually matters a lot more because even if you have the safest job and so on, at the end of the day, it's the resilience, the knowledge, the network that you have that's going to carry you over longer term, because otherwise you're just one restructuring away from a problem anyway. And what I want to give you today is like a fair assessment of both. Step one, let's actually look at how vulnerable your job is to AI. And you don't need to break your brain about this. There's actually tools that are available, like Washington Post recently posted a tool where you can actually drop your job and it will tell you exactly how at risk your job is to AI. And just to give an idea of the framework that we're using, so the research was actually done by GovAI and Brookings. And what they've done is identified that the highest risk jobs are those that are repetitive, screen-based, rule-based, those that are kind of, admin tasks, repetitive things that you can essentially outsource to AI. So think scheduling, data clerks, document review, customer service, basic financial processing, and certain coding tasks. On the other side, they looked at the lower risk roles, and those are requiring some kind of physical presence of a human being. So some of those are maybe relationships building, where you have to network, where you have to be present, building relationship with your customers, and so on. Think of those where you have to bring that human judgment, where you have to bring your relationships into the puzzle, right? Creativity, context. These are the things AI is not going to take over. So right now, I want you to think about your specific role. What's the percentage of your role currently that can be automated? How much of it you actually do online via computer? How much of it is it repetitive? And how much is it actually based on relationships, context, creativity, innovation, and so on? So let's say if 70% of the work that you're doing is repetitive and 30% is based on judgment and relationships, you might need to think about your role. If on the flip side, 30% of your role is repetitive and 70% is based on kind of judgments, relationships, and the human aspect, then you might have some runway. Step two, let's look at how adaptable you actually are. And there are 3 questions I want to ask you. Question number 1 is, when was the last time you actually learned something new? Not something that was pushed by you by your manager or your HR, but something that you actually were genuinely curious about. You took some time, you got to know this new skill, you learned something new, you stepped out of your comfort zone. When was the last time you actually did that? If you can't remember, that's a signal. Second question, do you have skills that actually transferable across industries, right? Are you super specialized? Because if you're super specialized without AI fluency, that can be potentially a risk. And the third question I have for you, how active is your network? Now, I don't mean how many connections you have on LinkedIn. I don't mean how many people like your LinkedIn post. I mean, if you reach out to people tomorrow and need a referral, a recommendation, a new opportunity maybe, or maybe just even some insights about how to get your next step, how to a job, how to pivot, maybe some kind of opportunity they can give you, whether it's a gig, a freelance, anything that can help you generate income. How good is your actual network? And do you have people you can actually reach out to who will actually respond because you've built and maintained that relationship versus just having them in the back end of your LinkedIn that you kind of ping once in a blue moon? Your network is your real adaptability engine. And most people don't really start networking or building and maintaining relationships until they actually need it. And it's the wrong time. So if you do have a network and you've been a little bit neglecting it, I'd recommend to actually start building it right now. And if you don't have a network, you might as well start now because it is a long-term process and you need to start. And finally, step three, which is the forward gap analysis. So looking at your actual job role and exploring kind of what's next, what's popping up in your industry, in your specific kind of career path, right? What is the next step for you? What are the job descriptions saying? Pay attention to the skills they're asking for. How are they positioning AI in the job role, right? So looking at just like what is your job going to require of you? How do you make sure you stay competitive? Or if tomorrow you are to apply to the next level of your career, what does that actually look like? What do you need to have handy? And then most importantly, what are the gaps between those job descriptions, where you are today, and where do you need to be to actually close those gaps? And that gap list is your actual developmental roadmap. So that is what you will use to make sure that you don't become completely irrelevant in your particular job role. And then the final question maybe ask yourself is, how am I going to use AI in my job role, right? It's not, you're going to be using AI, and probably in most cases, we're going to be using it in some capacity in our job role. So really understanding and playing with it and actually understanding beyond just like a regular, like a search engine, actually start building things. I mean, Claude Code is doing amazing things. Now you should build stuff on your own. Start experimenting how you can apply AI in your job role to make yourself more efficient, more productive, to understand how you're going to actually bring this into your work so you can then showcase this at your next interview or the next job role that you're going to be doing. Now, I want to be straight with you. I keep it real with you in these episodes for a reason, because there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of like, here's what, all the things you need to do and so on. And the reality is that no answer to is my job safe is going to be guaranteed. Sure, there's a lot of people talking about the uncertainty. We're not really sure where this is going necessarily, right? Certain jobs, of course, that are in front of you that are already automated, that's a fact. We see it, we see it real time, but there's a lot of still unknown in the market. What is certain, however, and something that we do know over the years and years of different job markets and ups and downs in the economy and technological advances, is that people who actually do audits, people who actually build networks, people who continuously do the self-awareness, continuously doing the upskilling and the continuous learning, those are the ones that get those jobs. Those are the ones that maintain their competitive edge. Those that continuously put themselves out of their comfort zone are the ones that thrive even in the worst of times from a like overall perspective, right? So we do know that. That is certain. And I think that is what, if you take away anything from this episode, is I really just want you to take full ownership of your own career by doing the 3-step audit, the career audit that we talked about today, right? And understanding what are the gaps and work on closing those gaps. So here's your homework this week, not next week, this week. I want you to spend 20 minutes and I want you to actually identify how at risk is your job to AI. And then what I want you to do is I want you to actually look at 3 skills that you need to develop in the next 12 months to close the gap between where you are today and where you need to be to maintain your competitive edge, or to maybe even recreate your career. Because if your job is completely automated and completely out of the equation, then you really need to reevaluate. So 3 skills that you're going to build, and I want you to create a plan of how you're going to acquire those skills. And if you have a friend who's asking themselves, is my job safe? Send them this episode. And I'm happy to also have a chat anytime if you want to reach out. And my website has a lot of content and a lot of practical steps of how to build a network, how to maintain it, how to build a personal brand, career search strategy, and so on. So ElenaAgar.com, check it out. Stay intentional, stay visible, keep building, and I will see you next week.